Hello again everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I've had a number of you guys reach out and ask me when am I doing a review of Pop! OS 2004, and never before on my channel have I had so many of you guys reach out and ask me about a review that I'm working on, so that must mean that there's some sort of excitement around Pop! OS 2004. And you know what? I don't blame you. I've been pretty excited for this one as well. I have it loaded on this laptop right here. And all day today, the Pop! OS dev team have been working very hard, finishing up the release, fixing last-minute bugs to make sure that this is a good, awesome release. And now that it's finally been blessed, it's finally out, I can go ahead and release this review and give you guys my thoughts on Pop! OS 2004. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. Again, I've already loaded it on this laptop right here. This is a ThinkPad T480S, so let's go ahead and give it a spin. And here it is in all of its glory, a fresh installation of Pop! OS 2004. I've already gone through the installation process off camera, but there's a few things that I do want to mention about the process. Now, first of all, it hasn't changed all that much from the previous version. Just like before, it's a two-step process. You start the first step by booting from your Pop! OS installation media, and then you go ahead and install the distribution. In my case, I decided to go with a full install. I wanted to wipe everything clean and have Pop! OS as the only operating system on this computer. And then you reboot, and the second stage starts where you set up your user account just like before. Now, the installation process is very fast, it's easy, it's straightforward. My only complaint is that there are no LVM options that I've been able to find. I really would like to use LVM with my installation, but it's not a deal killer. I can live without it. Now again, the process was very, very fast, and the first boot, and actually even the subsequent boot, was also very fast. It's actually surprising to me how fast Pop! OS 2004 starts up. Now in my case, I did choose to encrypt the hard drive during installation, so it would have been a lot faster if I didn't have to pause the startup process just to enter my password. But if you take the time that it takes to enter your encryption password out of the equation, the actual boot time for Pop! OS 2004 is just ridiculously fast. So I think it's pretty cool that they have put some engineering effort into making Pop! OS start up quick. That's really awesome. And once the installation process is finished, well then you're presented with what you see on the video right now, the default desktop running GNOME 3.36. Now first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at the look and feel, because I feel like that's one of the things that sets Pop! OS apart from many other GNOME distributions. But I don't want to focus too much on that because Pop! OS does a lot more than just simply change the theme, as you'll see later in this review. But I do have to call some attention to the theming because it just looks awesome. They customize the icon theme, the window borders, you name it. There's polish all the way from the boot screen where you enter your password, the login screen, the wallpaper, everything has been touched by the System 76 engineers. And this distribution has always appeared to me to be a labor of passion. And I think that really stands out from all of the attention to detail. So when it comes to the default look and feel of GNOME in general, I've always found that the default theme is very bland, so it's no wonder that the Pop! OS developers have decided to theme it and make it look modern and attractive, which they have done. If you've actually seen a distribution shipping GNOME with no theme changes, for example, Fedora 32, which was recently released, I think you'll see why they had to go ahead and develop a theme for the environment. And they've actually done a lot of work on the theming engine. They've been working with the GNOME developers, so who knows, maybe some of these changes that they're making are actually going to make the GNOME look and feel better for everybody. Now, one thing I've also noticed is that the responsiveness of the distribution is very fast. Just launching applications, I mean, everything just comes up very, very quickly. I just love how responsive this is. Now, GNOME 3.36, the the version of GNOME that ships with this release, which is also the same version that ships with the new version of Fedora 32, as well as Ubuntu 20.04 itself. There's been a lot of work done to make it fast, so that's not really specific to Pop! OS, but the speed of GNOME 3.36, along with the work that the developers of Pop! OS have done to make the process of booting much more quicker, faster, I think that it all just equates to a package where everything just feels like it's flying, it's screaming. And this is no slouch of a laptop. It's a T480S with an i7 processor, 24 gigs of RAM, and an SSD. So it's definitely no slouch of a machine at all, but it just kind of feels like it's breathing new life into my laptop. I love it. Now, one change that could be potentially jarring when it comes to Pop! OS if you have used a previous version is the fact that the keyboard shortcuts have changed. In the past, for example, you would hold down Super, aka the Windows key, and press up and down to change your workspace. But that's actually been changed. So I'll open a window here so I have something to switch away from. And it's actually going to be Control and Super, and then up and down. So rather than just holding Super by itself, you have to also hold Control as well. And why is that necessary? Well, the tiling aspect of Pop! OS, which I'll get to soon, required some basic changes when it comes to keyboard shortcuts for everything to integrate cleanly. And I think the mentality was just rip the Band-Aid off all at once. Let's get this change over with. Yes, it's a little jarring at first, but I think you'll get used to it. It's just a necessary change. There's no getting around it. They had to make sure that everything is as consistent as possible, especially when you add to the fact that the tiling aspect, the tiling extension, requires additional shortcuts. Everything just has to mesh cleanly, and I think they've done a great job with that. If you're curious, you can go here to the Applications menu, and then in Settings, and then you go to Keyboard Shortcuts right here. And then you can go ahead and get a list of all the keyboard shortcuts on this release. So for example, if I didn't already have the file manager open, you could do Super plus F, and there it goes. You open up a file manager just like that. We can look at some of the other shortcuts here though. If I scroll down a bit, we can see some of the other shortcuts here. So move to workspace above, move to workspace below is what I've already talked to you about. Control Super down and up. So now you know how to switch workspaces. But you can also go ahead and move an application window to a specific workspace as well by just doing Shift, Super, and then the down arrow, and then the up arrow. Notice how this window is going down and now it's back up here. So I can move this window down to the next workspace. I can move it back up here. So I can use keyboard shortcuts to arrange where my windows are. And this is not new. GNOME has allowed you to do this for as long as I can remember. But the difference this time around is the keyboard shortcuts that allow you to do this have all changed. And just go ahead and have a look around. You can basically access this again from the Settings menu. And then you can familiarize yourself with all of the keyboard shortcuts. You can see that it's quite extensive. So you can actually boost your productivity by not using the mouse so much and just using these keyboard shortcuts. Sure, it might take a little bit of time to get used to, but I think once you get the hang of it, it's going to be awesome. Now going back to appearance, just like before, we have a light and a dark theme. So for me, it defaulted to the dark theme here. I can go back to the light theme if I prefer. I could simply just go back and forth. You can basically choose which one you like more. And I actually like the dark theme quite a bit, so I'm going to stick with that. So you get some flexibility as far as, well, if you want a dark or a light theme, I think that's awesome. Pretty much every user environment, every operating system nowadays gives you that option, and Pop! OS is no exception to that. We also have our online accounts here. So if you have a Nextcloud account, Facebook, Google, any of these types of things, you can go ahead and add your account to GNOME, which should actually allow you to synchronize alerts, maybe get email alerts, calendar notifications, things like that. So you could really benefit from that integration if you use any of these services. And of course, we can go ahead and configure printers, and look at this, it's already found my brother printer. Now, Ubuntu 20.04, and this uses the same base as Ubuntu 20.04, also sets up my printer for me, which is really cool. And Pop! OS is no exception to that, but what I like is that it's not nagging me with messages over and over again. Printer added, which Ubuntu 20.04 does constantly. And it's something that I noticed after I published my review on that it just every now and then decides to remind me that, hey, I added this printer for you. It's like, great, I liked it the first time, I thought that was awesome, but you don't have to keep reminding me. But right here, I didn't even see a message come up, and my brother printer is already ready to go. And brother printers, at least for me, have been kind of difficult in the past to set up, but it's just one less thing that I have to do once I install this distribution. It's just pretty cool when you find out that your operating system just decided to set up something for you. That's pretty neat. Now let's go ahead and open up the Pop Shop. This guy right here. And if you didn't already know, this is how you install new software on Pop! OS. You simply just search for a category. So I'm just going to randomly choose, let's say Slack, and well, here it is. So I guess everything updated here. Slack is very popular for a lot of dev teams out there, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And what we see here is where it's coming from. So it's telling me that this is a deb package, but I also have a Flatpak option as well. And this is really exciting because it gives the user full control over where the software actually comes from. And you might be wondering, well, what's the difference? Well, Flatpaks are a universal package type. I'm not going to get into that in too much detail, what that actually means. But generally speaking, it's going to be more up to date. Deb packages are generally locked to the base. So Ubuntu 20.04 might offer, I don't know, a certain version of an application. They may not ever offer a new version again until the next version of the entire distribution. And the only time they might update that is if there are security updates. I hate that. I mean, it's good in general if you are focusing on stability, but every now and then you just need the latest version. But we get a choice because we can just go with the Flatpak version, which is generally going to be more up to date. So I'll go ahead and install the Flatpak version. Why not? Let's just see how this works. And I can see the process of it installing, which doesn't really seem like a big deal, but coming off of the Fedora 32 review, which basically just sits at 0% pretty much forever until it automatically just suddenly jumps to 100%, I guess you kind of take something like a working progress bar for granted. But, you know, it's installing, so that's pretty cool. I'll go ahead and let it finish. It's almost done. And there it is. Now I have Slack installed, and it should be in the menu now. And sure enough, there it is. So I can go ahead and click on it. And I can sign into whatever my Slack workspace or group name is, account, what have you. But I don't really use Slack for anything other than my day job, so I'm not going to bore you with that. Now we can go over here to Steam because, you know, Steam is a very important thing, at least for me. I love games, and Steam just gets better and better and better because the integration, even with Windows games, just keeps improving, especially with Proton. And it's really exciting to benefit from Steam. Speaking for myself, most of the games that I want to run work fine in Steam. And the one that doesn't, which is Skyrim, I still play Skyrim even after all these years. I can still get that to work with a little bit of convincing and tweaking. But other than that one game, pretty much every game I want to run is supported. And let's see what we have here. We only have the deb version because sometimes that's all that's offered. And I can go ahead and just click the install button for Steam. And deb packages are definitely going to require me to put in my password, which I will do right now. And it installs. And there we go. And sure enough, we have Steam. I can go ahead and click on it, and this eternal updating Steam thing that takes a ginormous amount of time is going to go ahead and complete. I'm being a little dramatic. I'm very impatient. I'll just let this finish, but you get the idea. We can install software. That's pretty cool. And you know, Pop! OS 2004, it just came out. Normally we would have an update button right here if we actually had any updates. I mean, it just came out, so of course there's going to be no updates just yet. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, at some point it's going to have some updates, and that's how we're going to get those updates. You can also install firmware updates for your computer from here as well. There's a built-in firmware updater in Pop! OS. You don't even have to be running a System 76 machine to benefit from that. But, you know, if you do, of course, you're probably going to get firmware updates either way, because regardless of where your system comes from, you will get your updates through here. And that's pretty cool. So go ahead and close that. We still have Steam, which is still in process of updating itself right here. So I guess it's going to keep bothering me until it's finished. So I'll go ahead and let it finish. All right, I may as well go ahead and log into my account here. So I will be right back after I sign in. So here I am. I'm logged into Steam. So I can go ahead and try to play a game here. So there's this one game I always want to run. If you are a fan of my channel or have been following me for a while, you already know where I'm going with this. Of course, Final Fantasy VI. This is a game that has to run on a distribution for me to take it seriously. This is a requirement, more important than anything else. This must work. So let's go ahead and install it and see. All right. So it's downloading in the background, and while that's going in the background, I'm going to go ahead and change the wallpaper because I'm curious what other wallpapers are available here by default. So many of these I do remember seeing in the previous version, so we can go ahead and take a look through here. I'm going to go ahead and just switch to this one. Why not? That's pretty cool. That's nifty. And it looks like we're downloading pretty quickly here, so almost there. Final Fantasy VI will be on my computer very soon, as it should be. So, looks like we're all set. The green play button is lit up. It should work. Moment of truth. Let's see if it does. I'll click the button here and click continue. Let's play. We're waiting for a progress bar to finish. You know, if the average person spends 50 hours a year waiting for things to load on a computer, how long do I spend? I'm kind of scared to find out. But again, I'm impatient. Anyway, so far so good. Let's make this full screen. And I'm not very far yet because my save file is on the original Super Nintendo. I just kind of mess around with this. And here we go. We have Final Fantasy VI running on Pop! OS. So Pop! OS passes the absolute most important test of all, that it must run Final Fantasy VI. And here we are. And of course I'm being attacked. You know, a lot of people don't like the new look and feel of Final Fantasy VI in the newer versions. Honestly, I prefer the old ones as well, but I'm kind of warming up to this, to be honest. Little fanfare victory music. And there we go. Everything seems to be working just fine. All right. Now, speaking of games, there is another feature I want to talk about, but unfortunately I won't be able to show you. And that's the ability for you to be able to decide which video card, if you have more than one, an application runs on, which is great for games because if you have a dual GPU system, maybe for example you have an Intel/NVIDIA system, you could basically run primarily off the Intel card and then direct the games in the games only or whatever app you want to run off the NVIDIA card. Now this laptop here only has an Intel card, so I won't be able to show you. However, I am working on a video where I'm going to talk about dual GPU gaming and external GPU gaming in Linux. I'm working on that video now. I don't have an ETA as far as when it will be released. I'm running into some technical difficulties, but I'm going to get it done. So definitely subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. And that's the video where I'm going to show off the process. I will show it off in Pop! OS, most likely Ubuntu as well, maybe even a third distribution to kind of compare and contrast how this works across the distributions. So stay tuned for that if you're a gamer. I'll definitely get some content around that as soon as I possibly can. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the tiling mode. I know that a lot of you guys are waiting for this because this is probably the standout feature of Pop! OS. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check that out. So up here I have this new icon. This didn't exist before. And if I click on it, it says Tile Windows. That's disabled by default. And we also get some hints about keyboard shortcuts here, super plus slash, for example, and then super plus arrow keys to navigate windows. Remember that. I'm going to go ahead and enable it. And so far it doesn't look like anything has happened, but what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'll just launch the file manager, and notice how it's taking up the entire screen. Now normally with that off, it's just going to be a smaller window. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a terminal window. And notice how now the terminal window is automatically tiled to the right. So this is auto tiling. That's exactly what this does. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off temporarily here. And now that it's basically disabled, I can just go ahead and move my windows around and kind of just make them smaller. Now, what you just saw was me docking a window to the left and also to the right. Now that in and of itself isn't new because I could simply do this. And I've always been able to do that. So the problem with tiling is that you're not always going to get a benefit, or probably you'll get no benefit at all on a standard 1080p display. Basically, there's no added benefit. Now where the added benefit really comes into play is when you have a very big ultra-wide display, because GNOME by itself doesn't handle that very well, and that's actually what inspired the tiling or auto tiling extension. That's actually what inspired the System76 developers to come up with the idea, because they want this stuff to work. I have an ultra wide display. I'm actually going to be upgrading my desktop to Pop! OS 2004 tomorrow, and I can't wait to benefit from this feature. But I'm going to go ahead and just close out of my apps here. Let's turn this back on. And I'll just open a terminal. It's full screen. I'll go ahead and open up a web browser here. And now the web browser is open, and that automatically handles. And then why not? I'll just open up a file manager. So you can see that the tiles get smaller and smaller. But I really like this because you always see everything on the window. Normally you could just hit the super key. You could still do that and see all the applications in an expose style overview here. But now that we have the tiling mode, we don't really need to do that. And another thing that we get is super and then slash at the same time. We get an application launcher. Now this is awesome because I install uLauncher on all of my Linux installations. And now I don't need to do that because this does what uLauncher does. Instead of, for example, going up here to activities and then searching for an application that you want to run and then clicking on it, I mean, that's fine, but that takes you out of your workflow to go to the activities overview. With this basic application launcher, I could just start typing an application name right here, and there it is. There's Firefox. I could press enter on that. I already have Firefox open though. And for example, I could just type PopShop and press enter. And of course, the tiles are getting a little busy here. This is a 1080p display. I don't feel like tiling is that big of a benefit here, and it could even negate some things in a smaller screen resolution like I have. But you get the idea. This can be incredibly useful. And then you can hold the super key, and then you could press the up, down, left, and right arrows to kind of switch which application is the one in front. And if you are needing some kind of highlight or something, you can go here. You could show active hint if you'd like. And now we have this orange border around the application that is in focus, and it makes it easier to tell when I hold super and press the arrow keys which application is the one that's in focus. And I think that's pretty cool. So I'll go ahead and close some of these so I can get some of my screen real estate back. I just can't wait to try this on my desktop and benefit from this feature, but also in addition to that, this is not Pop! OS specific. Yes, it's built into Pop! OS 2004. Yes, you'll benefit from having it, but at the same time, you can install this on other distributions. I've even done a video recently where I installed this extension on Ubuntu itself. So Pop! OS, the developers are awesome. They're not keeping this to themselves. They could have made this secret sauce, maybe some kind of reason to push people to use Pop! OS. But instead of doing that, they made this extension available to everyone. I've even heard of people on Fedora running this extension. So I think that's really cool that they have released this to anyone that wants to use this, regardless of whether or not you're using Pop! OS. But if you are using Pop! OS, it's built in. There's nothing you have to do. It's available right from the first boot. So I think that's really cool. Now, so far, my time spent with Pop! OS 2004 has been great. But, you know, to be honest, it hasn't even been 24 hours yet. So I don't really know what the stability is going to look like yet because, you know, I need to spend a little bit more time with it to really know. Now, in the limited amount of time that I have spent with it, it hasn't crashed a single time. It's been super solid. It's fast. It runs great. And I just love this distribution. And all of these customizations and all of the polish that the developers put into this just keeps me coming back to System76's Pop! OS all the time because it's just a fantastic release. And in addition to the things that I've shown you in this video, there's all kinds of things that I could show you. This video would go on forever. I mean, the desktop experience is first class. I mean, when it comes to upgrading to a new release, you just go to settings, it'll show you that an upgrade is available. You click on the button, it downloads, it runs. There's an option to reinstall Pop! OS, basically a recovery partition, just like you would get with Dell or any of the big name manufacturers. And System76 is pretty much approaching big name at this point if they aren't there already. I just think that all the things they're doing here is giving us Linux users the default Linux desktop experience that we should have had all along. It's almost like System76 has finally succeeded in their mission. Now, I recommend that you guys try this distribution out. Definitely check it out. And as I use it, as I get more and more into this release and get it onto more systems, I may have additional opinions about its stability or long-term stability that I'll share with you guys if I have any additional thoughts after I get more use out of this. But so far, on release day, I'm very impressed with this. I think you should check it out. Definitely let me know in the comments below what you think of Pop! OS. I'm interested to see how this runs for you guys. So definitely let's have a chat about Pop! OS. Maybe I'll see you in the Mattermost chat. So thank you so much for watching this video, guys. And by the way, 10 million views as of, I think, today. And I should have probably mentioned this at the beginning of the video. Oh my God, you guys are awesome. I couldn't be more excited. This is great. Thank you guys so much for watching my channel, for subscribing, for liking my videos, for making the YouTube experience for me to be something that is just amazing. I really appreciate it. So anyway, with all of that out of the way, definitely subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I will see you in the next video.